Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another wonderful episode of Beyond the Bottom Line, the video show that takes you down the rabbit hole, sitting down with nonprofit leaders, executives, founders, volunteers, and pretty much anybody in the organization that never gets the time that they deserve to share their stories and give insight into the wonderful world of nonprofits and especially the organizations that they're part of. So we decided to create this show to give them that space to share and give over that information and get you more insight in what really goes on beyond the bottom line within a nonprofit organization. And today we're sitting down with three people who are part of a very, very wonderful organization, Foundation for Fighting Blindness. These guys are based in the Pennsylvania region, part of the Pennsylvania chapters, but they are a national chapter organization that helps with people who have vision impairments and other things like that more in depth. They're going to talk about that, not me, because that's what they're here for. But we're sitting down with Jeff, Eric, and Dan, all in different respective roles within the organization, to give their insights on that. So, like I said, we're going to have them talk about this, not me, because that's not my thing. But let's dive into the show. So guys, welcome aboard. How are you? It's a pleasure to have you all on. I know we've been trying to do this for a couple weeks now, and now I finally got all three in the room. So what's going on?
Thanks for having us, Sean. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes,
It's my pleasure. So,
Yes, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so what's your stories? What's your deal? What's the story with the organization?
So I'm Eric Bernardo. I'm the president of the Pittsburgh chapter of the Foundation Fighting Blindness, and I've been in this volunteer position for exactly 5 years now. I've been involved in the organization since 2017, more peripherally, but like I said, stepped up to the president's volunteer role in the Pittsburgh area chapter about 5 years ago.
Way cool.
Pittsburgh chapter in 2016. Well, actually 15 was introduced and then 16 got involved. And then when I went to Indianapolis to go to graduate school, I was a part of the Indianapolis chapter, and on both Pittsburgh and Indianapolis, I served in a leadership role. And when I came back to Pittsburgh, I caught up with Eric and Dan, our new representative, and they've asked me to help with sponsorship this year. So you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, Dan?
Great. Thanks, Jeff. And again, appreciate it, Sean. Much. We're really glad to be here. My name is Dan Coble. I am the Pennsylvania Community Manager. So I oversee the chapters in Philadelphia and the beautiful city of Pittsburgh and get to work with these fine gentlemen. Today is actually my 4-month anniversary with the foundation. So I am like the babiest of babies of knowing what's going on, despite the foundation's really long-standing history of helping out in the community.
Well, very cool. So what does the foundation do? Because, when I first started talking to you guys, I didn't realize how big this organization is. And I think when we had a pre-show call, we were talking about that, and I didn't realize the depth of it. So what does the organization do? What does the foundation do specifically? And you said you're a community manager, so it seems that there must be multiple communities involved, multiple different parts involved, and not just one centralized place. So, what do you guys?
Yes,
What's the deal on all this?
Well, the way the organization, it's a national organization. It started in 1971 with the founder, Gunter Gunn. He was looking for to solve a problem he had he lost his vision, and research wasn't good in the U.S., so he went elsewhere and didn't have good results. So he decided to start the foundation, and then across the country, there's 40, 50-ish chapters, I think, and they all work like what we do to help raise money so that we can have all these clinical trials going on to hopefully find cures for 4 or 5 main categories of inherited retinal disease, and then a lot of subsets of smaller conditions that are rarer. So it's all about research and finding cures for inherited retinal diseases.
Cool. And so when it comes to that, so within the organization, though, how many people have inherited retinal diseases? How many people are vision impaired? Are there a lot of people within the organization who are like that?
So this is Dan. So in the organization, so in the foundation itself, we have less than 100 staff total nationwide, and only a handful of folks are personally directly affected with any sort of vision imparity or difference. And so, but the vast majority of our volunteers, like the other two gentlemen on this call, they predominantly are them or someone of their family members are affected by one of the either inherited retinal diseases or AMD. Um, I'm missing what the words are. Macular degeneration.
Mm.
I'm reading my notes in front of me, and so it's our mission to drive the research that will provide preventions, treatments, and cures for people affected by inherited retinal diseases and dry AMD.
Nice. That's really cool. And like I was looking into you guys, there's a lot of research that you do. You guys do publish a lot of studies. You give lots of funds to different research opportunities. So when it comes to the community side of it, Dan, that's your job. How big is this community that you manage? How big, overall, like how big is the national community within the organization? And what are the roles that you do, and what are the roles that other people do within the space and the volunteer side of it?
Sure. So, how big is the national community? I mean, I don't have a grasp at all on how big that community is in reality. And just getting up to speed, I would say, so for example, in Pittsburgh, we have several hundred people that show up annually to our vision walk. Now, those are the people that show up to things, like show up to that main event outside sort of a thing. But we support hundreds, if not thousands, of folks in each major city around the U.S. And so it's being part of the foundation's community isn't just showing up to stuff. Sometimes it's providing a resource to someone, sometimes it's just providing an ear to them
Hmm.
where they just got a diagnosis and they don't know what next step to take. And we can listen.
Huh. That's so cool. That is like way cool. And so like you guys are on the volunteer side of it, like Jeff and Eric. So
Mhm.
what is it like being a volunteer with such a deep, impactful organization? And what type of roles do you guys play as volunteers?
So this is Eric. I'm the president, as I mentioned in my intro, of the Pittsburgh chapter of Foundation Fighting Blindness. I've been in this role since June of 2021. And as president, I am essentially responsible for working very closely with Dan on the staff side and strategizing about the direction of the chapter, both from a fundraising standpoint and a community outreach and engagement standpoint, recruiting new volunteer leaders within the organization. There are multiple leadership roles within our chapter. So responsible for recruiting and helping onboard and train other volunteers to help lead the effort in various capacities, such as fundraising, community engagement, corporate engagement, things like that, event planning. And to answer the other part of your question about what's it like being a part of this organization, it's a phenomenal organization to be a volunteer in, because it's an organization that seems to, in my experience of 5 years of being a leader, that really gives the leaders, the volunteer leaders, the autonomy to make the chapter essentially what they want to make it from that standpoint, and also has the resources to help support that vision for the individual chapters. I feel like there are a lot of organizations that do one of those things very well. They are resource heavy and maybe have more of a bureaucratic process of how they run their chapters, or they give you a lot of autonomy and don't have necessarily the resources to back up the ambitions of the chapter leaders. But the Foundation Fighting Blindness checks both of those boxes, which has made it for me, a very rewarding and enjoyable experience. And the people are just so nice at the organization too, which always helps. So it's been a great experience.
Well, that's awesome. What about you, Jeff? Like, what's your perspective on it as a volunteer? Nice. So, you said something, Eric, how the organization, you're all chapter based, and you're a volunteer president of the chapter, but there's a lot of autonomy and the organization gives you the freedom to do what you want to do. That is very rare, I find, with a lot of organizations. But so, like, what are some of the things that you guys do that, that the parent organization is supportive on? Like, what are some of the things that you guys do specifically within Pittsburgh that is different from other people out in different parts of the country?
So we do have so every chapter, as Dan spoke about a few minutes ago, every chapter does have a vision walk, which is it's the flagship, program in each individual chapter. But outside of that, to answer your question, we do have some very prominent individuals within the organization on a volunteer basis in our chapter who do what are called DIY fundraisers, so do-it-yourself fundraisers. And we here in Pittsburgh have a national trustee named Judy who raises on her own. She's also affected by an inherited retinal disease. She's 80 something years old and has been very, very visually impaired for many decades now, and raises on her own anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 a year just for our chapter.
Wow.
And she raises a very large percentage of the DIY bucket of money that is raised specifically by volunteers throughout the United States every year. And she throws her flagship event every December. She hosts an event. It's a Christmas themed gala in December, and it's usually in the beginning of December, and usually about 200 people attend, and it's at the Butler Country Club here in Western Pennsylvania, and it's a brunch lunch type of thing. There are baskets, there are silent auctions, there's all kinds of things that people do, and that event by itself raises $50,000 to $60,000 a year. And we, because of Judy's efforts, since we're a relatively small, relatively new chapter, in sort of a new volunteer chapter emphasized era of the foundation that's taken off in the last maybe half a dozen years or so. Because of Judy's efforts largely, and of course the efforts of the staff and other volunteers, those of us in the foundation Pittsburgh market, we have become a nationally recognized chapter at our national, now international foundation conference that takes place every other year. 2 years ago in Chicago, we were recognized nationally as a chapter for basically our growth and our momentum as a chapter, given our size and the new nature of our chapter. So
Wow. That's really awesome. That's really amazing. That's really amazing. So, going back to Dan's role as the community manager, how is running the Pittsburgh, like the Pennsylvania community area, like how does that connect to the overall community stuff? I'm sorry, my nose is like a little itchy. How does that connect overall? Like what Jeff was saying is like, you went to the conference and the networking that you do at the conferences, ultimately leads back to him finding out what his diagnosis was. How does your role play in all this?
Yeah, no, that's excuse me, that's exactly like that's the crux of my role, is being that through point for the community, right? Even being brand new in the first few months here at the foundation, I know that my colleagues know way more and have way more connections to things, or we have, for example, we're currently in May of 2026, and May is Mental Health Awareness Month here in the States. And so we have a whole database, a whole list, a directory of mental health providers that are specifically trained for people in the blind and low vision community. So, Sean, if you reached out and were like, "Hey, I need to talk to somebody about this. I don't feel okay. I need to like express my feelings." Well, great. Here's a whole list of folks that you can talk to. We have these resources. The foundation was founded. I want to say it was over 50 years ago. I forget the exact date. I think it was 1971. Um, Eric shaking his head yes, so I'll take that as a he knows better than I do. And so, and so we've been around for a while. And one of our goals as the foundation is to be the undisputed global leader in affecting and impacting folks in the blind and low vision community, specifically in inherited retinal disease community. And so to be able to do that, we have to have those connections, and we have to have no barriers to entry for anyone. And so everything that I do, whether it's connecting someone with a doctor, it's providing them a resource or a third party affiliate of ours, it's all free for the folks. Like Jeff was saying, the genetic testing through my retina tracker, that's all completely free. And so we do the fundraising that covers those costs, but then also funds the research, the dollars we've been granting out to some of these scientific researchers for those 50 years. And we've given out a lot of money, almost it's $996 million to date that we've given out just
Wow.
specifically in scientific research. And so we know people, and we're we're connected to the best in the world. And so when folks come into the community, they find us because either they're start of their journey or they've just felt lost going to their regular optometrist. They come across us. We're able to just bring them right into the fold and help them to get right up to speed as quickly as they're willing to find resources, to find connection, to find care, and find support for them.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. So I guess as we wrap up this podcast, each one of you guys has a different role within the organization, has a different perspective on it. What piece of advice would you give Eric as someone who is running an organization as the chapter president, as also a volunteer? What piece of advice would you give to somebody who's coming into that similar space within an organization, a chapter? And Jeff, what piece of advice would you give to someone who's coming into a similar role that you're playing within the volunteer space? And Dan, the same as with you, someone who's heavily rooted in community and growth and development, and making sure people have the resources to do what they need to do. So what advice would you give each one of you from your own perspectives on this?
Yeah, I would give, this is Eric. I would give, if someone was coming into a similar role as me or coming into a volunteer capacity in a chapter, I would tell them to, don't be afraid to share ideas. Don't be afraid that there are no bad ideas. And we're always, this organization thrives on the ideas and the drive of its volunteers along with its staff. And please, don't be afraid to share what you think we are doing right. Don't be afraid to share with what the organization is doing, what you think they could be doing better, and communicate with your chapter leaders. And if you are a chapter leader, communicate with your community manager, which would be Dan in this case, along with the other, folks at the foundation. But this organization is thrives on the drive and the ambitions and the passion of the staff and the volunteers. That's what brings us the money. And when you get to the bottom line, the mission of this organization is to make sure that people don't lose all of their sight. And if someone has lost all of their sight, to help that person see something again, see a little bit again. So, if you want to be a member of the organization from a volunteer standpoint, come with ideas and don't be afraid to share them. There are no bad ideas. There are no bad questions. And that would be my advice for somebody.
Nice. Anybody else? Cool.
Yeah,
Eh,
and I would just, Dan here, I would just wrap up by saying that, being new to the organization is kind of almost the exact pairing to what Eric was saying, was ask a lot of questions. Fortunately, there's no silos here at the foundation. It's not, this is my territory, get out of it sort of a situation. The community managers work really great alongside the events team. Our scientific staff is so smart. They were like, "Hey, here's all this stuff you can learn." And I'm like, "Do I need to learn all this stuff?" And they're like, "No. Always come back to us and ask whatever questions you have and connect us direct to the community." Everyone's been just so helpful at the foundation, and everyone's just willing to just be there because we're just people. And it's great to work for an organization that wants to genuinely help people and restore sight to the blind. It's amazing. It's just such a blessing.
Amazing. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us on Beyond the Bottom Line. I'm going to put all the contact information into this episode. You'll see that in the notes on the episode. You'll also be able to connect with them through the page that we're going to create for them on the GiveSuite site. And we'll have a link to the donation button as well. So if anybody'd like to connect with them and make a donation to the organization, they're doing wonderful work in helping people all over the country, and not just in Pennsylvania and in Pittsburgh, but just doing wonderful work all over the country. And if you feel like you connect with that and want to be a part of it, make a donation, partner with them, be part of something bigger. So, guys, thank you so much for joining me on this episode. As always, this show will be seen on our YouTube channel, Beyond the Bottom Line Show, on Bravehearts TV, as well as on our website, givesweet.com/Beyond the Bottom Line. You can watch their video there as well. And until next time, I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Keep on doing wonderful things and changing the world.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you, Sean.